I love it.
Sex is
I love
life,
it.
yo.
I love it.
Sex is life.
Sex is life. And you know what? You're so right. Like sex erases so much. And I think that's a lot of the reason why women and men get lost in it. They get lost in sex and they use sex as a way to soothe themselves, comfort themselves, to distract themselves because you absolutely get lost in the feeling of it, right? Now,
Yeah.
Kalisa, what about you? And I just want to frame this because I want everybody in the world to know, and I'm so proud of you, that my girl Kalisa was a virgin when she got married. Y'all give this girl some love in chat. All right, give her some love on Facebook. She saved herself for her one do it. And so, Kalisa, when you think about sex, what is its purpose for you?
Well, I'll go with the ultimate term, seeing that I'm pregnant, so procreation would be one.
Okay, procreation.
But definitely, I feel like sex really is about. I think that Terry have said it about communication. But I believe it really helps with intimacy, especially the bond between husband and wife. It really draws you closer together when you effectively communicate in sex, and that's what the conversation's about tonight. But I really feel like sex is that added thing to help fortify your union. So
I love it. Did you all hear that word fortify? It
absolutely.
fortifies your union. I see Talika, Tequila is saying it's the glue that seals everything in the relationship. And so sex brings us together. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Sex is the glue, sex is the sealer, sex is the attraction. So when we think about sex, in your experience, what's the biggest challenge between women and men as it relates to sex? What's the biggest challenge? Simone, let me hear from you. What's the biggest challenge?
Well, it's funny you should say that because we just had a big conversation about this the other night. And I think the biggest challenge is actually what this topic is tonight is communication. Because for some reason, we find it difficult to talk about sex with each other, to talk about what we want, what we like, what we don't like. It can be very sensitive. So we had a big conversation about women faking, for instance.
Ha ha!
And really, I mean, it stems from not wanting to hurt the guy's feelings, not wanting to say, well, I didn't really like that. I didn't really, and I think men do the same thing. That's what they told us anyway. Men fake too.
Well, listen, only one guy here. We can hear from him in a second.
So I think
Practical.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and communicating with each other and getting past. I like to talk about these limiting beliefs, right? But getting past the beliefs that we have about ourselves. Men are socialized a certain way about sex, like they have to be these studs, these bedroom bullies or whatever they have to be, and then women, we feel self-conscious sometimes about our bodies. We may not want to turn the light on. We don't want to take our clothes off. I mean, so there's all these different hang-ups that we have that I think creates barriers from making the connection that sex can be.
Okay, good stuff. Ontario, what's with the pressure on guys to be a bedroom bully to the point where, they got to show up and show out and, that kind of thing. Like, what's with that? What's at the core of that?
I always say, I'll ask you one question, DeQuesta. What type of car do you drive?
What type of car do I drive? You're putting
Yeah,
me on the spot. A Mercedes.
a Mercedes. So you like luxury class and that
I'm
smooth
a
drive, right?
luxury class kind of girl.
So every guy wants to be the Mercedes for his woman. But you don't want to be, you want to show that you got that ability to bring her to her ladder, you know. But I think it's more so, that's the one task that we are given to really, that we give to women outside of, gifts and support and protection. That is the one thing that we come to a complete agreement on, that performance is everything. That's like, you know, what's the place in New York called where if you don't do good, they pull you off with the what was that, Carnegie? But they pull you off with the hook if you don't have a good performance.
Yes.
You don't want to fail at that. So, you know, in Shabba words, you won't be a bedroom bully. You want when you finish, you retire something for the afternoon. You
So
know,
men
if she
are
jump up
always
and be like,
under
okay, I
pressure
can go
then.
jog. Yeah, we always have to be under pressure to perform. You know,
Wow.
dealing with women is like trying to defuse a bomb. You want her to blow up in this instance. You don't want to, you know, defuse it. You want that bomb to blow up. If that bomb blow up, then everybody is good for the night.
Wow.
More than, you know, some of the times.
Okay. So Carlisa, in consideration to what Oterio said just now regarding men being under pressure to perform, to please their women, to be that bedroom bully, and going into your marriage as a pure person, having no sexual experience, did that alleviate pressure? Do you believe in your marriage life, or did that enhance the pressure?
I feel like it did a mix of both. So on my end, in terms of my husband, although, you know, growing up, there's that pressure that he talked about men having. He was very understanding in the fact that I was coming in green, as they call it, you know, not having that knowledge. And so for us, it was, okay, whether you have knowledge or experience, and I don't, okay, how do we marry the two? So he didn't necessarily put the pressure on me. It was good that he may have been knowledgeable of things, but we explored together, because you don't want one person knowing and then I'm just along for the ride. That's not really what it was about. So for us, it was, how do we marry the two? But it was pressure on my end as well, because I've told people before, being a virgin after 20 plus years and then coming into marriage, I mean, as a Christian, I was taught, you know, you don't talk about sex, you don't explore that. So basically knowing what to do, I was like, I feel like we're kind of done a disservice in some cases, because coming in, the expectation is, okay, you're married. That part of my brain's supposed to just turn on. And it's like, I don't know what to do. Nobody gave you a manual. You don't have those conversations. How do you figure out what my body likes, what my body don't like, what he wants? So it's kind of like, that's why I said the pressure was on, but from my end, because I'm putting some added pressure on myself. Like, okay, first of all, from high school, girls were doing this. And then I come in the picture and I'm like, look, they didn't say, I don't know how they did it at that age, but at my age, stuffing, you know, it ain't how I imagine. So for me, it was kind of like the pressure from wanting to perform, because just like how Oterio said it, men want to perform to please, but so do women. You want it to be pleasurable on both ends. I think movies and sex and stuff like that, sex and movies kind of taught us that, oh, it's all on the man. In most cases, the woman's job is, oh, just look sexy, and you know, then the man can handle it, and then that's the end of that. But you have to know that it takes two.
Yes.
And there's pressure on both ends. And I think what alleviates the pressure is the communication. If you are able to talk and communicate and explore and say, well, I don't know how to do this. Okay, let's try this. Okay, that ain't working. Or being okay evolving with it. So I think it's pressure on both sides, but there's a way to kind of navigating it. For me, that's my view.
And I see Tamara is agreeing with you, because she is, you know, she's essentially saying that sex is like the big elephant in the room for church. Like, church people don't have a lot of conversation, but church people are marrying people, you know, and so they need to know how to connect, and wives need to know how to please their husbands. Husbands need to know how to please their wives. So Kim, as you listen to this dialogue and this conversation, what are some of your thoughts surrounding communicating in sex? Like, for sex to be good, there has to be not just an exchange of bodily fluids, but an exchange of conversation. And how do we create a safe space to communicate?
I think communication in sex really starts outside of the bed. You know, maybe not so much during as much as outside of, because, you know, first of all, in marriage, you know, you're married, that's your friend, and you're talking about everything. And sex could be one of those topics that you talk about, you know, just like you talk about anything else. When, you know, I think that in the middle of the act may not be the best time. And that's why people hesitate, because, you know, now I don't want to hurt your feelings, like you're in the middle of your act. And that's probably not the best time. I think timing is everything, right? The only thing that should be communicated, I think, in the middle of the act is if you're really liking it, and if that's a great time, let's say it, right? So that you can encourage the same thing, the thing that you like, or obviously if there's a real problem. Like if there's a real problem, you need to communicate that. But when it comes to, you know, just talking about the things you like, it should be just like that. I like chocolate cake, and I like when you, you know, I mean, I literally think that's the way the communication should go. I don't think it should be some, I have something to talk to you about, you know, that's too heavy. This is something that's fun and it's pleasurable, and you should keep it light. And, you know, maybe after the act, you could say, oh, well, I love that. I love when you that's the way you communicate about something you love, you know, with someone that you love. And it's funny, you know, Carlisa, just like you said, that in the church, and I'm definitely a church girl, we don't talk about it enough. You know, in our marriage ministries, oh my God, I'm in charge of our marriage ministry. And just having this conversation, I'm inspired to, you know, have some type of session talking about sex, and not talking about it in a austere way. I'm talking about, you know, a lot of men are not really pleased, right?
Really?
Because they don't get enough.
Yes.
Their wives, and this has been a complaint that I have heard by my pastors. Yeah, I've heard my pastors.
Quiet on this side.
Yes, Pastor Ruth Monroe, she always used to say, listen, we are getting too many complaints from men saying that women aren't having sex. And you know why they're not having sex? Now, this is me talking, not her anymore. It's for the same reason that Carlisa said. They have been so programmed in their minds that this is not something that they really should be doing. And then even when they get married and the switch is supposed to turn on, we still don't talk about it, like in the marriage ministry and stuff like that. We still act like it's something that's a little bit taboo. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the people in the world who are sleeping with you want to learn some lessons? Go learn from them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, well, geez, these little young girls, what are they doing, right? Like, I could probably take a lesson or two. But we're the ones who are supposed to be, you know, this is what God gave us as married people. We're supposed to be the greatest exploiters of this act. Mm-hmm. Not everybody else. And so we need to communicate about it as if this is something that we're supposed to have and enjoy to the max. And you know, the Bible says the marriage bed is undefiled. Yes. That means that as long as the two of you agree, whatever you want to do, that's good for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? But we're made to feel like, oh, okay, missionary position only, missionary, right? I mean, just the word missionary, right? That's a godly way to have sex, right?
Yeah. Listen, Ontario, listening to all of this, right? Listening to this dialogue and this conversation, share with us from a male perspective the difficulty in helping women not be bashful, helping them to be open to other positions outside of the missionary position, helping them be open to exploration. What's the difficulty in explaining to a woman exactly what you need to please you? Like what are all of the minefields you have to navigate in order to get there?
Boy, that is a very touchy subject, even for most. I think that that conversation goes well before you engage in sexual activity. Sometimes it's good to sit down with a person and really just talk it all the way out. Like, hey, I like this and I like that. And even the I want to do this to you conversation, and you can find out a lot that a person could say, I don't like that. Or but when you do that, add these three things to that, and perfect. And then when because once you've already done, and this is where ego gets in the way, because once you've already engaged in something, if she fakes and you now as the man perceive that you've done a good job, we don't change our program much. We'll stick to what we're doing. We'll stick to that program. Okay? We'll punch them same keys every time. Tell you, say, okay, listen, hey, first time I lied to you. I needed you. I know I was a little scared. I was a little timid, I didn't know what to say, but you pushing the wrong button here, bro. Like the button is way far left, you far right. And the same thing for men that, we do in sometimes in that initial rush of sexual engagement, we neglect to just say, hey, okay, you're doing something wrong. Sometimes some people, I've known persons who was literally hurting themselves physically because they just didn't say what the problem was. And then that caused more problems than was warranted, because if you're hurt, there's no continuity. So you have these long pauses where there's unexplained sex. You can't explain why you don't want it because of what happened or what transpired, versus just saying, hey, listen, this is wrong, But I think that that's one of the things for if you are already in a relationship, though, I think it's always an opportune time just there's new ways, there's a million ways to reintroduce the act of sex with your partner, whether you role play something or whether you, whether it be a Hollywood movie or an adult one, and you just say, boy, I wouldn't mind that. But I think that sometimes we get to this point where we've created the perception that we've created to our mate is that you're perfect. I don't like these weird stuff. I would never do that. Meanwhile, you want to do that. You go, I never, girl, I hate, some dudes see girls in shorts. I would, the wife just asked him, boy, what happened if I wear a short? Girl, I'll let you go because I never want to see you. But he'd go cheat, the same person he could cheat with is someone in the shorts,
Wow.
And the same thing for a woman. A man will come and say, what if I choke you tonight? Choke who? Choke him, huh? Then you go around with a man and he choking you. You actually choke me, half kill me, like that's the problem that we have. But I think there's a way that it can be done, but it just takes one person to really step up. You may not be greeted the way that you think you may be greeted. It may not come off, perfect, but at least that person would have an idea and they can understand that you're coming from a real place to keep things going,
Yeah. Well, I want to share some of these comments with you. I see Tamara is saying, Ontario, you better be truthful. You're talking sense off in here. Tequila is saying that we allow the intimacy level in our relations to fizzle out. BC is saying God created sex. Tequila is also saying that you have to grow in your sex life just how you grow in your relationship. Marcellus is saying that there are 101 sexual positions, and some women's sex drives are stronger than men, and they have ridiculous expectations. And to build a relationship first before we get into sex. Simone, I want to come to you with some of these comments though, because there are so many components and layers to being able to engage in sex purposefully and happily.
Yeah.
Women need an emotional connection. They say women are emotionally driven, men are logically driven, men are visually turned on, women need more priming and primping, well us. The younger set might be a little different, but women need a little more massaging, right? But for sex and communication, how does the young girl who has experienced incest, the young girl who has been raped, the young girl who has had inappropriate sexual experiences, the young girl who is exploring whether she's straight, whether she is bi, whether she is this way or the next way, how does the woman experiencing all of that get to the heart of who she really is to be able to enjoy sex? It's like he said, we fake. And when we have experiences, like Carlisa is blessed to have not had experiences that framed what sex was for her before marriage.
Yeah.
So when we have sex outside of marriage, we have something to compare to. Now, whether her sex is good or not, whatever she got, that's good. Bless it. Right? And so
It's the way God designed it, right? Technically.
That's right. That's
We
right.
wonder why.
That's right. That's right.
So how do we address the little girl inside of us who is showing up in our adult sexual relationships, lying to our partners, faking in the bed, doing things that we don't want to do, because some of these dudes want you to go in positions you really don't want to go in, and you're doing it because you want, please just do it, right? So how do we communicate safely?
I think it stems to really understanding, first of all, where you are in relation to sex. The man aside, are unpacked because they are going to negatively affect your sexual relationship, especially where there is trauma attached to sex. So for me, I was molested as a little girl. So those things can follow you if you don't deal with them, because it'll give you a few different perspectives of sex. Either it's something that you're going to run after because you think it's something that you're supposed to do to be loved, to be approved, to be accepted, and all those things. Or it's something that you're going to run away from because it's so painful, as Otario said, physically painful, mentally, emotionally painful. I can't connect with this. And there are more stories like that than we would care to think about. But there are a lot of reasons why, as he mentioned also, where we have these long breaks, where the person seems like they're frigid, that they're not interested in sex. You're not attracted to me. It's not even that. It's like all this other stuff that's going on. And so I think it's very important to deal with yourself. Now, we're not saying that you have to be like this 100% whole person, because is that ever possible? We're all journeying, and I think there are areas of our lives that's more healed than others. But I think when you get into a relationship, it is only fair that if this is a relationship you're serious about, this is a relationship that you are happy to consider that I want to marry this person, knowing that sex is an integral part of that there's probably an expectation of having frequent sex. I mean, this is why people get married, right? So you have to be prepared to have that conversation and say to your partner, I am struggling in this area, and you need to do the work in getting healed in that area, because it's not fair to your partner who's coming to bring all of who they are, all of what they think, and they don't want to come off as, sometimes I feel sorry for guys because they try so hard to make women happy. They try so hard to jump through all the hoops that women sometimes make them jump through, and still to no avail. Still, they don't get what they want, And so I think it's very important to be open to be honest with yourself first. And you may have to admit to yourself that, hey, I don't know if I'm ready to be in a sexual relationship, because you don't want to be that partner who is going to shut it down and the whole thing falls apart because you can't be intimate.
Wow.
And fully vulnerable.
Wow. And sex requires vulnerability.
It does.
Well, real sex, like, and I say real sex because some people have hookup sex and it's emotionless. It's just to get that good feeling. Ontario, we talked about that earlier. Like some people just want the feeling because it makes everything disappear for the moments that you are enjoying. So when it comes to that woman who has been traumatized, and Khalees, I come to you in a second, but when it comes to that woman who has been traumatized, when it comes to that man who's been traumatized, because our men are traumatized as well, and we have two people coming together that don't understand sex, because I mean, let's just be real, like who taught you about sex? Like where did you get your sex education from? Who told you that there was more than just a missionary position? Who taught you the various positions? Who taught you what foreplay was? Who taught you that to get a woman in bed, you got to play with her head? And when I say play with her head, I mean sex at night starts from the morning. So you have to prime, you have to caress, you have to be in contact with her if this is going to be meaningful sex. And so, Ontario, as a guy, what is the challenge in helping a woman heal? Like you've met a woman, you like this woman, she's having challenges sexually. She's, she's showing up, but you could tell that she ain't showing out. Or you could tell like she being a little extra, right? How do we help men help women? How do we help you as a man get the frequency of sex you need, the positions you need, the variety of things that you need? You know, you guys want us to do different things, not just lay down, right? So sex ain't just a 2-organ a deal, right? So how do you get all of the things that you want? Stop opening your eyes wide like that, man.
I tell you, because you're right, they 2 organs now. They using everything, Jam. But I think that if you have someone that is damaged or broken or isn't capable of really giving to you what it is you need, I think it's just down to communication. If that person is willing to be vulnerable enough to give you the source of their, discontentment or the source of their inability, then as a partner, in all fairness, it is on you. The onus is on you to try your best to make that person comfortable. Now, I say that, without any restraint, because on the other end, as a female, I feel as if although you've expressed this hindrance or this issue, you yourself should try to push past, because you're informing the man of what it is, what the problem is, but no one is literally going to bring you happiness but you.
Yeah.
No one is going to get that problem out of your way but you. I can help you as much as I can. I can show you that the reason that you feel that way isn't what I'm offering. And that should help you to get out of that hole. But don't retreat to it every single time. Don't retreat to the hole if you get mad at me. Don't retreat to the hole if the sun didn't shine the right way or you didn't get your coffee on time. It should not be an excuse per se. And again, on the men's side, I would say it's a rarity, but you find that some men, we have, sexual trauma, we have damage where we are distant or we're not able to relay emotion the way that we should be. Some of us, we probably sleep with so many people that we just disconnected romantically. We just expect, I take it off, you take it off, we go at it. And the romanticism and those things are sometimes void. And again, it works the same way that a woman can say, hey, listen, I can't just, it's not a light switch. It just doesn't flip on, flip off. You don't clap on, clap off. You know, to get disengaged, you need to kind of do these things. And you know, it boils down to the communication between the two, for honest communication, not just communication, not badgering, not over informing, not just saying it to get it out of your head. It is sitting down and having a constructive conversation with your mate or your spouse and saying, hey, this kind of stuff I don't like. Maybe in a case like, you know, someone who got sexually abused, that person may have taken you from behind. You may be fearful of that.
Yes.
You know, that may give you the flashback and trauma. So then you got to tell your mate, hey, listen, that might be his favorite position, but dude, listen, I ain't ready for that position because of this. Don't just not do it. Because as far as he's concerned, he may not, that may be his golden ticket position. That may be the position that he finishes with. And for him, he need that.
Yes.
For you ain't giving that. So now you throw the entire dynamic of that experience off because you ain't explaining why he can't get that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important again, and it works on the opposite way as well. That, you know, men, we usually the first to say what we like. You know, some women, y'all, I know, Bahamian women, especially sometimes, you know, we grew up in church and we didn't want to say nothing beyond, okay, you know, we can see, and, you know, and we try to define things in the moment versus, like I said, predetermining what it is you want to do. And of course, that conversation ain't for everybody. That's, you know, whether if you feel like you're gonna have this with a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, then you are, regardless of the level of your relationship, because you're gonna cause damage in any case if you don't say it, you know. So that's my point on it.
Right. And Tamara is saying that both individuals have to communicate effectively and listen, not to answer or respond, which is so important. We have to listen to really understand our partners. Talika is saying that you have to start with her mind before you attempt to deal with her body. If her body was what was taken advantage of, you have to teach her to love, or teach her to love her body, and you have to love on her body. BC is saying that there's strength and power in vulnerability. Love is the key. Love that hurt out or her, and she will bend, flip, and fold. Marcellus says that most of them are not even willing to change positions, and that's a mood killer right there. So, Kalisa, coming over to you, I want you to share with us that how was the communication? How did you become comfortable did you become comfortable having conversations with your husband about what your needs are, or how did you get comfortable in sex? Because like you said, it's no switch. So you went from not having any activity to being married, and it become being a part of your wifely duties, right? So not only was it expected, it was a part of what God designed. And so how did you adjust?
Okay, so for me, well, for us, we like closer to getting married. I mean, obviously, from the beginning of our relationship, he was aware of my position as relates to no sex and stuff like that. So we had boundaries set in place throughout the relationship, but definitely we got more intentional with the conversations, especially like right before the wedding, because we didn't want like, oh, it's the wedding day surprise kind of thing. So we started having those conversations just in light, not so much detail and the conversation and the agreement really was, we're going to explore this together. So for me, you know, it's the wedding night, you know, their expectations, and it's like, okay, let's see how this goes. But it is a play, so we had to talk through it. It was just of it wasn't even just about the act, it was about everything else that led to it, because it is about the conversation, it is about the taking your time, and that was a big deal. So for me, throughout the honeymoon, even coming back home and adjusting to real life, it took me a while, honestly, it did, because I was like, I thought losing my virginity would be a snap. It wasn't, to be honest with you. It took me a minute. And he was very patient with that because sorry, but if we being real, that hurt.
Yeah.
So I was like, nobody really told me, how major of a deal this was. I was like, and I remember literally having a meltdown in front of him. I was like, how is it that these 16-year-olds are having babies, which means they had sex, and I'm 23 and I can't do this? Like, what's wrong with me? And he's like, Kalisa, it's okay. Calm down. Like, you don't have to put this much pressure on yourself. I'm not putting pressure on you. So let's just work through it. We'll take our time. It's okay. So he was very sensitive to my comfort. If it was becoming too much, it was like, okay, let's just, backtrack a little bit. And we gradually got there. But it was something that we both got the journey together, because that experience, although I was a virgin, he's still experiencing it with me. So it's still a different experience for him, whether he has had partners or a partner prior to me. It didn't matter, because we were starting this journey together. And I think a lot of it had to do with I had to learn vulnerability in a different way, because I've never had to be vulnerable with a man like that. I've never had to live with a man. I never had to expose myself or even know that side of me, because I didn't know what I was capable of sexually. I didn't really understand my desires like that, or even knowing how to love my body through all of the changes that were happening. Because especially when you become sexually active, your body is starting to do all kind of changes and go through different things. And so now I'm learning me all over again, but I'm doing it with him. And so we're both learning me and I'm learning him. And so for me, it did take a slow process, because I had to get out of my own head, and I had to stop putting so much pressure on myself to perform, when I understood that it really was just a different way of communicating. It was just an extension of the love that we both shared. For me, it wasn't so much just the act, because I think a lot of pressure is just on the intercourse, but really, even recently, because like I think somebody said in the comments, you have to grow in sex. And I've been married for 5 years, and I could tell you, we revisit things, we have conversations. Hey, look, let's do this, let's try that. Or, for me, recently learning even more about my body and understanding how I could make the adjustment, I was learning that in terms of orgasms, it wasn't just about the end result. You could have several orgasms if you understand what the whole process of sex is. It's not just one act, it's the whole journey that you learn to enjoy. And so for me, that took slow growth, but it took patience. And really, it was like, when I think about it, it just came to mind. But when you think about what love is patient, it's kind. Like, you have to exhibit that in sex. And I think it's a plus being married and having this experience, because even just the basis of it, sharing bodily fluids with a person, I'm like, I can't really do that with more than one person. This a lot, because I'm like, literally, that person in and out, literally. And I'm like, I don't know how people just out here not doing this casually. I can't, that's too much for me, but he got to know me literally inside and out. We got to share bodily fluids. Not even our parents are that close to us. You understand what I mean? Like, we have that connection. And I think when you understand the depth of it, and you understand the intentionality of God in having us join together like that, that makes it even more special. And so for me, I got a great appreciation. I was grateful that I only have this one experience. Like you said, where the persons may say, oh, it's good or bad, guess what? I get to determine what that is. And I like that. Even being open to hearing him in terms of, I would like you to try these things. Obviously, if I've never done it before, some things I'm open to saying, okay, yes, we can try it. We try it, and I may be like, okay, yeah, that was a no. good try though. But let's not revisit that. Or, you know, something that I may have had a problem with in year one, obviously as you journey together, I'm now more comfortable with it. But I had to definitely, I think one of the major things for me was me learning who I was.
Okay. Wow. Listen, that was a whole lot right there. That right there was the lesson, sister. And I'm straight up honest with you, I jealous. Because it sounds like you picked well. It sounds like you picked someone who would journey with you and understand. As we start to wrap our conversation up today, Kim, what advice would you give to men on how to connect with women through communication that can help them get the type and frequency and uninhibited sex that they want?
Mm, mm. Yeah, to just kind of unlock that box so that it's uninhibited. But you know, just it has so much to do with what's going on between the ears more than anything. And just like you heard of Carlisa's journey, that is the crux of the communication. And you know, really, that's the way God designed it. He designed it for us to have that one partner that we could journey with. And when you are married, I don't care how long you've been married, you know, we're always supposed to be reaching a new benchmark, you know, kind of like an HR term. But, you know, it's not too late. You know, I believe it's never too late. It's not too late to start talking to your partner. We have men who've been married 20 years and they're still not satisfied,
Yeah.
you know, with their sex life. But if you're not satisfied, then this is a beautiful thing to be able to talk about. For a man, if I were a man being a woman and I were unhappy in my sex life and I'm married to this woman who I do love, I would tell her I want to start over, and I would begin to romance her, and I'd begin to ask her questions, and I'd begin to talk to her playfully about sex, and I'd begin to find out what it is that she likes and that she needs. Because when you meet someone else's need, then your need will be met, right? Your need gets met by meeting someone else's need. So when you think about sex, and even in my own life, you know, I'm like, oh, I want this or whatever, you know, then I think, well, how can you please him first, and then you will get what you want? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Sex can never be about me, because me is not a part of the whole love concept, is it? The concept of love is esteeming someone higher than yourself. And so if a man puts his wife first and he talks to her and he finds out what she likes, you know, if you're not happy in your sex life, pull back and say, honey, tell me what you like, right? Romance her like you did to get her the first time. And then she will open up to you and you'll begin to get what you want. So, you know, really, I believe in that principle. You give first and then you get. And it's important to actually talk about it. Like, don't just try to do it and don't say anything. Let her know, you know what? I want to please you more.
Yeah.
And stop worrying about yourself, start worrying about her, and then she might start asking you, or maybe she already knows what you like and she'll start doing it. You know?
Great advice, Kim. Thank you so very much. Kalisa, I just want to share some comments with you. Dennison is saying, what a story. Beautiful, my dear. You have a gem. You are a gem. You have a gem. Continue to treasure each other. Tamara is saying that she wishes more young ladies hear your story. It was awesome, and saving yourself for your spouse is definitely worth it. And so I want to come over to you, Ontario, because Kim gives some great advice to men. Romance her, listen to her, Date her the way that you used to. Like, bring her back in her comfort. Make her happy. Be selfless. Like, seek first to give, and then you receive. And so, from a man's perspective, I want you to encourage women to be unbashful. Like Kalisa said, and many of us have this experience where we grow up in church and sex is taboo, right? Kalisa's fortunate in sitting down with her husband and having some of these conversations prior to marriage. But many of us don't have sex conversations before we engage in sex, whether married or not. We just go all in, right? Because, and I'm just going to be straight up, like some women think sex is what it takes to get a man. So they'll just give you it, right? Without they don't care. They'll jump off the chandelier and turn upside down on their head and twerk and do all kind of things. That's what they keep to do it. When the dude might want something else. From a male perspective, speak to women who are listening to us now and help them to understand that sex is beautiful. And even after a traumatic experience, it can still be enjoyable. Talk to them and tell them that it's okay to explore, to be uninhibited.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It is okay. I think that, like I said prior, it's just all about the communication. However, I think the one thing that makes everything easier is communication. Now, verbal communication may not be key because some people just don't know how to engage verbally. But communication through your love languages, that's the way that you speak to your partner, that the way that you got them, whether it's if listening is what got them to you, then you probably need to stop and listen. If speaking is what got them to you, you probably need to take some time and speak. if if touch, if you always want to give them shoulder massages and kiss them on the nape of the neck, those things you have to continue. And those things are important to always remember the foundation of your relationship is these love languages. Everybody does not have the same language. Some women speak Chinese, some speak French. You got to figure out when you get her which one she speaks, because no matter what happens, that's your reference point. Mm-hmm. That's where you can always go back to. And I think that once you're able to do that, the lines of communication will always be open. The freedom to express, the freedom of expression will always be available. The feeling of freedom and not being bashed or looked down upon by your partner, which is a horrible feeling, would not be something that's an issue for a person if you have that steady line of communication. And the same goes to women. I don't want to make it all about the men, but the same thing, it works both ways, vice versa. For your partner, you have to be able to communicate to him, because in the areas that you may lack sexually, you may make up for in his love language. If he's the kind of guy, he like a foot rub, or he like, unlike me, like a cigar. So there's certain things you can do in the absence of that activity that can satisfy him temporarily. I won't tell you that it's going to work, straight through. You may still need sex. He will still need it. But in absence of those things, that's the method by which you can properly speak and engage with that person in the most comfortable state, so that you can have that open dialogue. You can have that, you don't have to have that shame. You don't have to have that moment of, I don't know if I should tell him, or I don't know if I should tell her. It'll be like, when you talk to your girlfriends, girl, guess what I like, or dude, guess what I like, I saw this and I want to try this. That should be something you should be able to say to your mate. That should be, and I don't understand why, some people feel more comfortable telling strangers what they like versus the person that they're with. So if I go into this whole process for me and you to be sexually active, or for me and you to be together or married, sweetie, you better be ready to hear whatever. If I see it in the mall, if I go to the movies and they kiss the right way, hey babe, listen, you remember seeing at the end of the movie, right before the end of it, let's go play this. You should be able to do that. There should be no restraint with that. And I think that it is good for relationships to have that open dialogue, that open format, that open concept of communication. And for a lot of people, this is an unfathomable thing. You know, there's like a unicorn for some people to communicate with their spouse, you know,
Yes.
without trying to shady, without trying to muddy it up, or, you know, if I want a cup of water, just say you want a cup of water. You shouldn't have to try to go around the mulberry bush to tell your spouse or your mate what it is you want or you like. Now, granted, some people may go to the extremes, you know, with certain things that they see. You have the occasional person that just see anything and want to do everything. But, you know, in the normal instance, I think that is something that should be customary. It should be normalized. It shouldn't be far-fetched and unachievable between, you know, persons. So I would say get open, be honest from day one to day 60, you know, and if you're able to do that, you'll have a good relationship throughout.
And so one more thing for you before you go, before we wrap up our conversation, Ontario, thank you so much for all of that contribution, because we need to hear these things as women, right? So the other night, my husband and I were watching TV and Steve Harvey was on, and one of his questions talked about a survey of 100 men and the importance of sex to these men, right? Because the importance that women have for sex and the importance that men have for sex are different. Like women could go days or weeks and guys gotta go every day. As it relates to the need, because I'm made to understand it's not like choosing between juice and water. That it's actually you need water to hydrate. So for men, sex is like water for hydration. Can you help us understand that, please?
I won't get too graphic. However, there's an expression that relates to when the sun rises and a form of, what is this wood, right? Right. So AM, wood, you know, God gave us that when we woke up for a reason. He didn't say, you know, you get this thing and maybe you use it. You know, nobody gives you a gun to not shoot anything or anyone. So he gave it to us for a reason. And I think that women got to grasp the concept that yes, that is something that men do actually need. It is, you know, that's a fundamental part of, we process out every day. Every day we make more and more and more fluids every single day. We get the urge multiple times per day. But yeah, you get the urge multiple times a day, uncontrollable. The wind could blow right and, you know, lift up your head to the rising sun. You have that moment going on. So it is just getting into that understanding. And again, it's not to become abusive of it. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, every 2 minutes you got to try to give us something, but I see some women use that as a form of punishment towards men. You know, when if a man, you've been with him, he wakes up every morning, we get the same thing. When that don't come up when we wake up, then we probably need to go see the doctor. So I think that, you know, it is something to recognize that we were given it for a reason. We selected, you know, in some cases, men selected wives for a reason. It's a reason that we wake up in bed with you. We don't sleep in two different beds. Same bed every morning. You know, it's a reason for all that. You know, we gotta. I advocate. I know you know men watching this, but I advocate for us anyway. Give us peace.
Then we do have some. I just saw a lady post that morning. I need to that sign on my side. What a time! What a time, guys! This has been such a beautiful conversation here tonight. It's been enriching. It's been. I learned a lot from this conversation actually. And so as we wrap up today, are there any final, well, someone I'm going to come to you, but are there any final comments that any of our panelists would like to share before we sign off for today? Any advice, anything at all as it relates to sex and communication? I know Kim's background is firing up right now, so you can type in chat if you want and I'll read. But if anyone wants to say anything before we wrap up the show, go ahead, Kalisa.
I guess I just I just add to what has already been said, but I feel like one of the things with sex and communication, remembering that it's something that's continual. It doesn't have sex, especially within marriage, doesn't have to be an isolated topic. It's a part of everything else. So effectively communicating, I think Ontario started to say it where it's not just verbal communication, but it's also nonverbal. When you truly love your spouse and you're learning them, that's a part of it. So not too isolated, or even if you are not married yet, but you're still thinking about it, I would say too, especially for young women, start to learn yourself in terms of what would you want? Because I don't think nobody really asks themselves that question, but learning to know in advance, like, okay, what would I want? What do I like? What part of my body do I feel like? Do I have any, insecurities about my body? Take the time to grow there so that when you do connect, you do have a greater foundation to build off of. And even when Ontario talked about the men, the desire being there, understanding that as a woman, it's okay if you have those same desires and your energy matches what's predominantly thought about to be like the male energy of always wanting to express yourself in that way. Like there's nothing wrong with you. Essentially, sex is good, sex is best to me in marriage, but understanding that it is something that you can grow with, and it's not something that you should be, thinking of as taboo.
Awesome. Ontario, any final words or are you good?
I'm just gonna say like the key to a great marriage, or I guess the key to a great relationships, keep the fight clean and the sex dirty. Y'all enjoy it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so I just want to share a word, just some closing words with women out there, men too, that sex is, even though it's simple, it's complicated. It's not just two bodies coming together. Sometimes if it's a hookup, yes, it's two bodies coming together. In a relationship, in a marriage, there's richness and depth to sex. And there's so many things that impact that, our emotional state, the things we like or dislike about our husbands and wives and partners, and whether we had a good work day or a poor work day. And there are some times that he wants it and we don't want it. And sometimes we want it and he don't want it, and vice versa, and all that sort of stuff. It's just not simple. However, it can work if both partners work at it. If both partners are communicating openly and honestly about their likes, their dislikes. If women are able to understand that it's okay, we don't have to run out the bathroom with the towel wrap around us and dive underneath the sheet. Regardless of your body, whatever that is beautiful to him. He loves it. He likes it. Like, you be comfortable with it. You hide it because it's something in you that's telling you it's not enough. He loves it. He adores it. And so learn to get to the root of what's making you bashful. What is it that's telling you that you can't explore, that you can't kiss his neck, that you can't kiss his back, that you can't kiss the curve of his hip? Like, what is it that's holding you back from truly giving your partner, giving your husband, giving your wife everything that they need? And understand that there are some women out there, and I'm one of them, who have had traumatic backgrounds. And I'm grateful for my husband because he understands when I tense up. He understands when he has to work it for, help me work to get to a place where my mind is saying, you're safe. Because even though that incident happened many years ago, the act of sex is a constant reminder. And so make sure that you pick someone who is going to understand what your challenges are. Many of us women have been through that, where men have only wanted to try to get into our pants, and we put up these boundaries. And so my husband, one of the ways that he won me over was because of the fact that he was patient, that he was kind, that he was considerate, that he was thoughtful, and he wasn't forceful, always concerned about my needs and about pleasing me. And so Kim said it, when we get to the place where we want to give more than we take, we begin to enjoy. And so, Simone, I'm going to call on you to wrap our show up today. It's been a thank you so much, Ontario. Thank you so much, Kalisa. Thank you so much, Kim, for this amazing conversation. And Simone, it's all over to you for the wrap up.
Well, all we have left to say is amen, right? And a women. It has been a phenomenal show. Honestly, a phenomenal conversation. I think we got into some areas that we need to get into more, that sex should not be demonized, and we can demystify it by talking about it. Like Kim said, like chocolate cake. It's as simple as that, that we get rid of these hang-ups that sometimes we inherit that aren't even our own, and it's something that was created for us to enjoy, and that we should approach it that way, that it's something that it's to enjoy, it's to express love, it's to connect us at a soul and a spirit level. That is the deepest kind of intimacy that we could ever experience with another human being, aside from parenthood. Our beautiful Carlisa getting ready to experience that next, and so we just want to encourage all of you for being a part of the show tonight, and for all of your comments, and for your sharing and your feedback. And really the whole intent for Empowering Queens TV is that we walk in our power when we lead this. We don't make this just another conversation that we're smiling about now and we forget about later. Let's continue the conversation. Let us have these necessary conversations with our loved ones and change it forever. Spice it up till he look at you and she look at you like, what happened to you? And you can say, man, I'm inspired. So thank you to all of our guests tonight, to Kim, to Carlisa, Ontario, our lone soldier who held it down for the fellas. Listen, and he is an amazing cook. He defies all of the stereotypes. I love his food. Still have to try the juices. But, he's just an awesome guy all around. I really love Ontario. And to Quessa, our visionary, thank you so much, as always, for your creativity, your openness, and your willingness to just share and uplift people. We really need that so much right now. Yeah. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Yeah.